I think about Hashem, but I don't feel anything.
I wish it were on the tip of my tongue and my mind throughout the day.
I live the way I do because I was raised this way, not because I chose it, I feel it, or made it mine.
I'm super connected at heart, but not really in action.
I feel a deep connection, but I would love for it to be more on the surface, the first line treatment.
As Jewish women, we spend most of our day in the mundane world, cooking, cleaning, working, being there for our family, friends, and neighbors. But you feel like something's missing. Maybe this morning you davened, you said Modeh Ani, and you genuinely felt connected to Hashem. And tonight you'll go to sleep and say Shema. And between those 2 points, there's this great big gap. Maybe there was a spark or two. You found a parking space and said, "Thank you, Hashem," or you said a blessing on your peach with concentration. But otherwise, you miss Hashem. This is for you, the woman or girl who does everything right and still feels like something is missing. It isn't missing, it's right there. It's been there the whole time. You just haven't felt it yet.
What's the value of stopping that 1 second saying, Hashem, I'm doing this mitzvah because you command? What's the value? So for this, we go to the Drushas Aran, Drush 6, the Ran famous commentary in the Gemara. The Ran explains there, let's take the example of your lighting Shabbos candles. There's 2 women, okay, 2 different homes lighting Shabbos candles. One of them, she does the mitzvah dutifully. She probably feels something. Who doesn't feel something in their Shabbos clothes and Shabbos coming in? It's a very spiritual experience, lighting candles, and she lights it. That's already beautiful and amazing. However, there's woman number 2 who read 8 seconds, or she's in the 8-second connection WhatsApp group. Let's say that woman, she does the same thing, she feels the same feelings, but she takes that sacred pause and says, I'm doing this mitzvah because you command me to. I want to bond with you. The Ran discusses what's the difference in the reward between one and the other. Before I tell you what he says, I just want to point out, we know that it's not the highest ideal to do a mitzvah for the reward. And of course, it's better to be L'Shem Shemayim. However, you do gain something regardless of your motivation. When you hear the reward, you know its value to Hashem, who commands us to it, whom we're making a relationship with. So what's the reward for adding that kavanah? So the Ran says, we have these 2 women. One woman does it as is, and the other adds kavanah shlema, which I understand to mean she adds kavanah before the mitzvah, intention, and she focuses on what she's doing. What's the difference in reward? 1,000 times better? Believe it or not, more than that. 10,000? More than that. 10 million? More than that. The Ran says you cannot calculate the difference between one who does it with and one who does it with.
The reward for a single moment of kavanah, immeasurable. No number can contain it. But what if those moments didn't have to be rare? What if you could learn to find them, woven into the fabric of your ordinary day? Sarah Yoav Drigler, world-renowned author and teacher, has spent years exploring exactly that question.
Rav Melech Biederman tells, there was a woman in Beit Shemesh who came to a prominent psychologist there to complain that her husband didn't appreciate her. She did all the work, she took care of the children, she did all the housework. Her husband never showed any gratitude or appreciation or any connection, and she was very unhappy. So the psychologist called the husband in and said, you're married to a human being. You have to show her some appreciation and some connection, and you have to buy her a gift or something. So the husband agreed that he would take the advice. A while later, the wife returned to the psychologist, and she said that nothing had changed. There's still no connection. So the psychologist called the husband back in and told him. And the husband said, what do you mean there's no connection? Look, I don't know when our anniversary is. I can't keep track of her birthday. I don't know when she has a hard day. But I went and bought a lot of gifts. And I put these presents in a closet. And I told her, on your birthday, just take one. On our anniversary, help yourself to anyone you want. When you've given birth, just help yourself to a present. So we're all laughing, and it sounds ridiculous, but Rav Biederman ends the story. He says, and this is a translation from the Yiddish, "Is there any heart here? Any connection? What a foolish and insensitive thing to do. And yet, the same thing often happens between us and Hashem. We make sure to fill a closet with mitzvahs for Hashem. We perform the necessary mitzvahs, and we put them on a shelf. But Hashem says, the whole point of doing mitzvahs is for you to come close to me. I want a connection with you." So Rav Biederman concludes, the Zohar says that the 613 mitzvot are 613 ways of connecting with Hashem. So do mitzvahs with heart, Rav Biederman says. Don't do the mitzvahs only because you must and to fill a closet with mitzvahs for Hashem. Hashem wants your passion, your heart, and your soul. For over 50 years of my spiritual path, I had a problem. I kept forgetting Hashem. My spiritual goal was to be God conscious. I had the luxury of never working. In my life, I never worked a 9-to-5 job. So I had my mornings, like I had to start working at some point, but I had a lot of free time. In the morning, I could just set my own schedule. So I would spend a lot of time davening and doing hisbodedut and meditating and learning a little Torah and all those things, and I would feel so connected and so at peace. And then life started. There would be the work, the family, the emails, the housework, the shopping in the supermarket, just all the things that all of us spend our time on, and I was busy and distracted. Who had time to be mindful of Hashem? Does this sound familiar to anybody here? Completely, okay. So like you, I did all the mitzvahs. But for most of my day, I was not connected to Hashem. The mitzvahs, like Rav Biederman describes, were on the shelf. Rav Biederman says that Hashem wants our passion, our heart and soul. But where is there time for that between doing laundry and making dinner? Of course, we all have moments, those peak experiences when we feel Hashem's presence close to us. It could be in prayer, it could be in nature, or let's say a child's wedding. One of the most revealing experiences of my life happened during the 15 years that I lived in an ashram. In the ashram, we spent a lot of time meditating. Meditation was our thing. And one day I was leading the community meditation, and I had the highest meditation. I really experienced the oneness behind all reality. It was just great. It was like a really higher consciousness experience, and it was terrific. And I don't know how long I was lost in this higher consciousness. It was over the time that we had for meditation. The other members of the community got up and left. And I was just up there in bliss. And then finally I came down and I unfolded my legs and I got up and I left the meditation room. And a couple minutes later, another member of the community, actually my best friend in the community, came up to me and she asked me about the cooking schedule because I was in charge of the schedule. And I barked at her. I said, "What are you doing talking to me? Don't talk to me now about the cooking schedule." This experience taught me that there's a gap between spiritual consciousness and everyday life. In the ashram, I never bridged that gap. But in Judaism, the ideal is, Shavisi Hashem lenegdi tamid. I put Hashem before me always, right? So I want to say something surprising. Just like it's easier to be God conscious during our peak experiences, it's easier to be God conscious during our lowest times. Didn't we all think of Hashem more during the war? When the missiles were flying, when our miklots or our mamaz, we were running to them. When the shrapnel from the interceptions were falling in our neighborhoods, didn't we think of Hashem more? 25 years ago, I got a diagnosis of breast cancer. It was 100% clear to me that it was from Hashem. That Hashem had sent me this scary, really traumatic diagnosis because he wanted me to do a tikkun. He wanted me to grow. He wanted me to live on a higher level. I felt Hashem's presence with me through the whole process. When I told my best friend the diagnosis, she was very distraught. And I said to her, no, it's from Hashem, it's good. And she said, it's not that good. Because it wasn't happening to her. It was happening to me. And I felt that Hashem was right there with me throughout the whole ordeal. And many people have related a similar experience, that when they're going through a very difficult experience, they felt Hashem's presence. It's much harder to be aware of Hashem when you're doing the laundry, when you're shopping in the supermarket, when you're working in the office, when you're making dinner. But if we're only aware of Hashem during the highs and the lows, while we live 90% of our lives in the middle, what kind of relationship is that? If we are aware of Hashem when we're davening, and good luck with that, but let's say we are. Let's say we're aware of Hashem when we are davening, but we're totally unaware of Hashem when we're on the phone with the credit card company contesting a certain charge. What kind of relationship is that? I wrote an article for Ami magazine, Shavuos issue, about this subject. I wanted to write about the book that you all come here to see, and called the article, How I Stopped Being an Occasional Atheist. Now, of course, like all of you, I believe in Hashem. I believe Ein Od Milvado. I believe there is no other force anywhere in the universe except Hashem. I believe all that. But when I'm on the phone trying to get through to Kupat Cholim, to our health service, and they say, press 1, press this, press that, they're saying in very fast Hebrew, they press this, press that, no, press that, and I'm holding on for 15 minutes of music, and then I get disconnected. When I call again, I press this number, I finally get through to a human being. I talk to that poor woman as if there is no God, as if God is not listening. Oh, how could I do it? I was on the phone, blah, 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 blah. I say in Hebrew. Okay, so the problem that plagued me for decades was how to remember Hashem, how to actualize Shaviti Hashem L'negdi Tamid, putting Hashem before me always. It seems like an impossible ideal. It's one thing for David HaMelech to say, Shavisi Hashem L'negdi Tamid. It's a nice pasuk to have framed on your wall, right? I had it framed on my wall when I lived in the old city. But are we really supposed to make it real in our lives? I was very surprised when I discovered that in the Ramah's annotations to the Shulchan Aruch was written by Rav Yosef Karo, who is Sephardi. So the Ramah put in the Ashkenazi annotations. His very first annotation in the Shulchan Aruch was he wrote, Shavisi Hashem L'negdi Tamid, and he calls it a major principle in the Torah, quote unquote. The Hafez Chaim repeats that on the first page of the Mishnah Berurah. Shavisi Hashem L'negdi Tamid. But come on, they couldn't have been talking to us busy women, right? Putting Hashem in mind always seemed just impossible. Then a few years ago, I started learning from Rav Asher Baruch Wegbright, the teacher here in Jerusalem. He launched a program called KLM, Kavana L'Mitzvahs. And he taught that even by the simple act of drinking a glass of water, a Jew could fulfill the mitzvah d'oraisa of taking very good care of your health. There's a mitzvah d'oraisa, a mitzvah in the Torah of v'nishmartem ma'od l'nafshotechem, taking very good care of your health. The word very is used only twice in the Torah, once about loving Hashem and once about taking very good care of your nefesh, your physical and emotional health. And Rabbi Wegbright pointed out that even when you drink a glass of water, if you have the kavana that you're fulfilling a mitzvah, then you are fulfilling a mitzvah. And if you don't, then you aren't. It's as simple as that. Because every time we do a mitzvah, we consciously join our will to the will of Hashem. And then we bond with the creator of the universe. We know this. We know that if you want to get some, my husband's birthday is tonight and tomorrow. So I had this great idea. I asked my daughter to make a cake, and I bought these 2 candles this big, one saying 7, one saying 9, for his 59th birthday. And we're going to have a nice party with the family. When I asked him about it, he didn't want a party. He didn't want a party. This is Wednesday night. Tomorrow night and Friday is Yom Yerushalayim, the wonderful day when Hashem gave us back the old city and the Kotel and Har Bayit. He wanted to go on a tour that he saw advertised of the old city. It's going to be 30 degrees tomorrow, ladies. But that's what he wanted. And I lived in the Old City for 39 years. How many tours have I done of the Old City, right? How many times have I done the Kotel tunnels? How many times have I seen the Horva? I davened in the Horva. This is a tour of the Horva synagogue, a tour of the Kotel tunnels. But that's what he wanted. He didn't want a party. I don't know what I'm going to do with those candles. He wanted a tour of the Old City. When we do the will of another person, we connect with that other person. When we do the will of Hashem, we bond with Hashem. Rav Shimshon Pinchas taught, when you think about Hashem, you are actually with Hashem. Is that mind-blowing? When you think about Hashem, you are actually with Hashem. Rebbetzin Heller Gottlieb says, put Hashem in the picture, because any picture without Hashem is a distorted picture. Now, this idea that Rav Wegbright taught, it changed my life. And it will change yours, by the way. It will change yours. It meant I didn't have to take extra time, because who has extra time? None of us have extra time. I didn't have to take extra time to do something else. With the things I was already doing, I could find a commandment commanded by Hashem, and if I had the kavanah, the mindfulness, the conscious intention that this is what Hashem's will was, and just state it, I'm with Hashem at that time. So, like doing the laundry, it's the mitzvah of chesed. Watering the plants is the mitzvah of the halakta b'drachav, of going in Hashem's ways, because Hashem has compassion for all his creatures. So if I have compassion for those poor wilting plants on my veranda, and I water them, I'm fulfilling a mitzvah of the Torah. Doing Pilates, it's a mitzvah of taking very good care of my health. Buying produce in the supermarket. Here in Israel, when we buy produce in the supermarket, we can have intention that we're fulfilling the mitzvah of taking trumas and maasros, because we buy produce that Trumas and Maasros has been taken. Listening to a friend's problem, the mitzvah of chesed. Feeling frustrated when I spend those 20 minutes on the phone trying to get through to Kupat Holim and then get disconnected. It's the mitzvah of accepting tribulation with love. It's a mitzvah in the Torah. It's a mitzvah in the Torah to accept tribulation with love. If you can do it, you're connected yourself to Hashem. Paying my house cleaner, once a week my house cleaner comes. Of course I pay him when he finishes working. I'm sure you all pay your house cleaner, your babysitter, the taxi driver. It's the mitzvah of paying the worker on time if you have that intention. And if you don't have that intention, you didn't do the mitzvah. The Chafetz Chaim in his time lamented that people were paying the carriage driver, of course it was the taxi of those days, they were paying the carriage driver at the end of a ride because they were honest. And they missed out on the mitzvah d'oraisa of paying the worker on time because they didn't have just the thought, the intention, the consciousness. This is a mitzvah commanded by Hashem, which takes us from the level of being honest when we pay the babysitter or the taxi driver or the house cleaner or the plumber or the sheitel or anyone who serves us and we pay them on time. We have an opportunity to connect to the creator of the universe. It just takes 8 seconds of kavanah. That's why my book is called 8 Seconds to Connect to Hashem, Mitzvah Mindfulness for Women. Somebody asked me, is that Kabbalistic thing? It takes 8 seconds? I said, no, I timed how long it takes. You have to verbalize it. In the Torah's story of the creation, when it says Hashem created human beings, Onkelos translates that as a speaking soul. What defines us as human beings is that we speak words. So we can't just have vague thoughts. We have to say the words, particular words. So somebody, a Rosh Kollel in Lakewood, named Rav Daniel Garfinkel, he wrote a book called Kasher Tzivah Hashem. He talks about exactly this. Rav Wegbright got it from Rav Garfinkel. This idea of saying before you do a mitzvah, Kasher Tzivah Hashem, ask him, I'm doing such and such a mitzvah, fill in the blank, Kasher Tzivah Hashem, as Hashem commanded me. That changes everything. We're used to hearing the word kavanah in terms of kavanah in prayer, to think of the words we're actually saying rather than just space out while we're praying. The term for that is kavanas halev. What I'm talking to you about is kavanas hamitzvos. The kavanah that when you're doing a mitzvah, you are doing a mitzvah. So Rabbi Garfinkel has this wonderful book. It's 512 pages long, and it gives the kavanah statement for hundreds of mitzvahs. what to say. Both mitzvahs you were aware of and mitzvahs you were unaware of. Chapter 14 is called A Listing of Common Daily Mitzvahs and Their Kavanah. He begins with the beginning of the day, with tzitzis, tefillin, and blessings on the Torah. That's not how my day begins. Is that how your day begins? With tzitzis and tefillin? No, that's not how a woman's day begins. Depending on your marital status and your stage of life, you begin with taking care of the children or putting in a laundry or preparing breakfast or getting dressed to go to work, even if hopefully you spend a little bit of time davening too. That's why I got permission from Rav Garfinkel to write this book, a popular woman's version of his book, addressed to the real lives of real women. There's a chapter on taking care of the body that includes naps, vacations, and chocolate. Yes, eating chocolate can be the fulfillment of a mitzvah d'oraisa, a mitzvah of the Torah, if you have the kavanah. I'm not going to tell you which one, but you have to read the book to find out which one. But as a chocoholic who believes that chocolate is a vegetable, believe me, I was thrilled when I learned this from Rabbi Wegbright. There's a chapter on chesed. Did you know that you could be fulfilling the mitzvah of loving your neighbor as yourself, which Rabbi Akiva calls Klal Gadol b'Torah, the general principle of the whole Torah? You could fulfill it whenever you give good advice, even if you're paid for it. How many of you are therapists? How many of you are real estate agents? Any lawyers here? Any people in the healing profession? Whenever you give advice, good advice, has to be good advice, you could be connecting to Hashem. It's a mitzvah d'oraisa of chesed. If you just have the kavanah that you're fulfilling the mitzvah. It's worth me mentioning. The klal gadol b'Torah, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, to love your neighbor as yourself. According to the Rambam, it's fulfilled in 3 ways. Way number 1 is by giving anything. You can give a physical thing. Some people are buying more than one book tonight. They asked me to subscribe a couple additional books. You give somebody a gift. You give somebody something to eat. One friend brought me a cup of water before we started. Or you can give something not physical. You can give a smile. You can give a compliment. You can give words of encouragement. Any act of giving is the mitzvah of Yahavta l'recha kamocha because you're doing hesed, if you have the intention. The second way we fulfill the mitzvah of Yahavta l'recha kamocha is by showing honor to other people. And the third way is by speaking well of them. The real life changer that inspired me to write the book was something that I read in the Ramban's commentary on Parshas Eikev. The Ramban wrote, he was writing on the Parshas Eikev, it talks about, it's one of the 5 places in the Torah that it talks about bonding with Hashem. There's a mitzvah d'oraisa to bond with Hashem. The Hebrew word is devekis. Devekis means to bond or attach. In modern Hebrew, devek is glue. 5 times Hashem commands us in the Torah to bond with him. The Rashi famously said, in this world you can't do it any more than you can bond with a consuming fire. The best you can do is bond with Talmidei Chachamim. That's hard for women because it means like hanging out with the Talmud. It's not something that's very open to us. But the Ramban says, the mitzvah is, and I'm going to quote it in a different place, in Devarim, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Et Hashem Elokecha tira oto ta'avod ubo tidbak. Bo tidbak, bond with him. So the Ramban says, in his commentary, something that absolutely changed my life. He said, it's possible that the term deveka means that you should keep God and your love for him in mind constantly, that your thoughts should not depart from him. I'm going to repeat that because it was a life-changing sentence for me. The Ramban said it's possible that the term deveka means that you should keep God and your love for him in mind constantly, that your thoughts should not depart from him. So how do you do it? You do it by kavanah lemitzvot. I know how busy you are. I'm not suggesting you take on anything new. I'm saying that with what you're already doing, just have the kavanah of the mitzvah. So how many of you work outside the home? Okay, there's a chapter in my book on bringing Hashem into the workplace. Did you know that if you cut short a personal conversation while you're at work, you could be fulfilling the mitzvah of not stealing time from your employer? The Ramchal calls this spiritual and ethical cleanliness. If you have a job, meaning where you work for an employer rather than being self-employed, did it ever occur to you that you may not be allowed to diet? This was a shaila that was put to Rav Moshe Feinstein. Rav Moshe answered that it is permitted to go on a diet, even for cosmetic purposes. Isn't that why we all do it? But if the dieters work for another party and see that their diet is preventing them from fulfilling their duties to their employer, whether because they feel physically weak or unable to focus on their work, they should obtain their employer's approval to continue with the diet. So, if you want to diet to fit into that dress for an upcoming wedding, but you realize that the lower calorie intake or the lack of a steady infusion of chocolate is going to make you sluggish at work, you can say, more than I want to lose weight, I want to fulfill your commandment, Hashem, to give my best to the company that's paying me, as you commanded me, in order to bond with you. Rav Garfinkel, his formula is to say, I'm doing this mitzvah as you commanded me, Hashem. So he has it in the third person. The Piazetchner Rebbe, the Rebbe of the Warsaw Ghetto, he wrote that you should always talk to Hashem in the second person, like we do with every bracha, Baruch Atah. So the formula that I recommend in the book is to say, I'm doing such and such a mitzvah as you commanded me, Hashem, in the second person, in order to bond with you. Because we women, we're into relationship. So I added the in order to bond with you part. The Rambam ruled that overworking oneself after hours is forbidden because of the concern for shortchanging the employer mentally or physically the next day. So if you're tempted to stay up late online, I'm talking to those of you who work for an employer, for someone else, if you're tempted to stay up late online, but you admit that lack of sleep will make you groggy on the job the next day, you can say, I'm going to bed now so that I'll be on top form tomorrow and not cheat my employer, as you commanded me, Hashem, in order to bond with you. There's a chapter in my book on duties of a daughter. How many of you still have a mother or father alive in this world? You're very fortunate. Did you know that helping a parent put on a coat or a sweater fulfills the mitzvah d'oraisa of kibbud av v'em? Or helping them with their luggage when they arrive at the airport? Mitzvah d'oraisa, if you have the kavanah. It just takes 8 seconds, and presto, Hashem is there with you in the arrivals terminal of Ben Gurion Airport. There's a chapter on Shabbos. Of course, we all keep the mitzvahs of Shabbos. But here's where Rabbi Wegbright calls them the R bandits. The R bandits are rote and rushing. They rob us of our possible connection to Hashem. Rote and rushing, especially the rote bandit. For example, let's say it's the first meal of Shabbos, and you're eating gefilte fish with chrein, and get a little bit of chrein staining on your new white blouse. And of course, you're not going to wash it off. You know the halacha, you know that laundering on Shabbos is forbidden. So you just shrug and sigh, and knowing how it'll be much harder to get the stain off in 26 hours. But you just, you sigh, and okay, I'm not going to do it. You've lost an opportunity to bond with Hashem. Instead, you can say to Hashem, look, I'd really like to take this stain off right now when it's going to come off sooner, but you commanded me not to. And I love you more than I love this new white blouse. So I'm not going to do it, Hashem. I'm going to keep your commandment. You see how the opportunity to bond with Hashem, it comes up all the time on Shabbos, right? Like you don't turn on the light as you go into the bathroom. You don't turn off the light when you leave the bathroom because you already have it taped and on. It's just something, of course, you do. It's just automatic. But if you take 8 seconds before you go into the bathroom to say, Hashem, I'd really like to have the second light on because I could see much better, but I'm not going to do that because you commanded me not to. And I want to keep your commandments. I want to do your will. You're bonding with Hashem instead of just going through Shabbos on rote. It will change your Shabbos completely. It will change your relationship with Hashem completely. Are you ready to hear the most amazing mitzvah that all of us miss several times a day because of our lack of kavanah? You're going to really be shocked at this one. According to the Shulchan Aruch, not relieving yourself when you need to is a transgression of the negative commandment found in Devarim chapter verse 2 to not make yourself repulsive. You're nodding your head. You already knew this? We women are so busy. We have so much to do that we often delay using the bathroom when we feel the urge because we think, I'll just finish washing these dishes. I'll just finish this email. If you stop and decide to go to the bathroom when you first feel the urge, as you walk to the bathroom, how long does it take you to walk to the bathroom? It takes you at least 8 seconds. If you say to Hashem, I'm fulfilling the mitzvah of not making myself repulsive, as you commanded me, Hashem. Hashem is in your hallway, in your home, in your office, wherever it is you are. You've brought Hashem into the picture. You've brought yourself into Hashem's presence. How many times a day do we have this opportunity and we waste it for lack of kavanah? Putting on your head covering fulfills the mitzvah of keeping the camp holy. You have to know the mitzvahs. That's why in the book, at the end of every chapter, there's a summary of what the mitzvahs are that are relevant to that particular aspect of your day. So you have to know the mitzvahs. Once you know them, you have to remember them. So I have on my washing machine a sign that says, I am doing the mitzvah of Hesed as you commanded me, Hashem, in order to bond with you. Over my kitchen sink, I have a little sign that I printed out myself in a nice font that says, I'm fulfilling the mitzvah of emulating you, Hashem. Because like I'm washing these dishes or I'm preparing whatever I'm doing there in the kitchen. I'm doing them either for my husband or for the guests that are coming. And if I have just the intention that I'm doing the mitzvah of emulating Hashem by doing any act of Hesed, then I am emulating Hashem. And Hashem is in my kitchen. When you're waiting in line at the supermarket, you can look at the produce in your cart. The produce that you didn't have to grow, and all the dairy products that you didn't have to milk the cow to get, and the bread you didn't have to bake, and the cleaning products and toilet paper that you didn't have to manufacture. And you can fulfill the mitzvah, it's a mitzvah of the Torah, to remember Hashem's kindness by feeling grateful for the bounty you're going to enjoy. When you're waiting in line anyway to check out at the supermarket, you can say to Hashem, look at all this stuff I have, and thank you for all this. Being grateful to Hashem is a mitzvah of the Torah. You say, I'm fulfilling the mitzvah of remembering your kindnesses, Hashem, as you commanded me in order to bond with you. Just last week, I had an experience where I was desperate to find a mitzvah that would put Hashem into the picture for a very challenging experience for me. As I mentioned, I had decided to write an article about my new book for Ami magazine. I used to be a columnist for Ami Living. I hadn't written for them for years, but I decided that this would be a good way to publicize the fact that I've written a new book. So I decided to write this article about my lifelong. I have been on the spiritual path, my friends, for 58 years, since my first trip to India at the age of 20. So when I talk about forgetting God and that being a problem for me, it was a long journey till I found this method of remembering God. Anyway, I said I'd offered to the editor of Ami magazine that I'd write an article about the whole process, that I would end with telling about my book. And the editor wrote back to me. She was glad to have an article by me, but she warned me not to make it an advertorial for the book. So I wrote a 1,300-word article, not talking about the book at all until the last paragraph. Went through everything that I'm telling you about, not everything, you can't get that into 1,300 words, but my frustration for forgetting Hashem during the day and the process I went through. And only in the last paragraph I mentioned the book, and then I submitted the article. Last Monday at 11:45 at night, ladies, never read emails at 11:45. Please never read emails at 11:45. I got an email from the editor, and she wrote, quote, the article is great up to the last paragraph. It looks like an advertorial that is trying not to be one. I don't think it's necessary to write about the book in the article. You can put it in the end bio. And I was like, what? What? The whole reason I wrote the article was to tell about the book. And now she doesn't want me to tell about the book. So I wrote back to her, telling her that, and offering to shorten the last paragraph, but I was really upset. You can imagine. I wrote the article because I wanted to tell her that I wrote the book. And then the next morning, during Hisbodedus, I asked Hashem which mitzvah I could do to deal with my frustration and my upsetness at this situation. And the answer came to me. The second of the 10 commandments, which happens to be the second of the 6 constant mitzvot, not to believe in any other power than Hashem. I was seeing the situation as a conflict between the editor's will and my will. But not to believe in any other power except Hashem means that the editor has no independent power, that she's an agent of Hashem. And there are not 2 wills here, there are 3 wills here. There's the editor's will, there's my will, and there's Hashem's will. Although all human beings are accountable for their choices, if I'm being hit with this situation, then Hashem has willed, or at least permitted, this to happen. So after a few minutes of reflection, I said to Hashem, I'm fulfilling the mitzvah of not believing in any other powers as you commanded me, Hashem, in order to bond with you. And you know what? My upsetness evaporated because I was bonded with Hashem. There's a mitzvah for every situation you find yourself in that can connect you to Hashem. Am I overwhelming you with mitzvahs? So I wrote to her what I said I wrote to her. I'll shorten the last paragraph, but I want to mention it. So she wrote back to me. She's really a very lovely person, and she likes me a lot and appreciates my writing, and I like her a lot. And she wrote back to me, don't worry, we'll work it out. So when she sent me the final thing I got yesterday or the day before, there's a little bit at the very end of the last paragraph. It's there. And I think it might be that she kept it in because I surrendered it to Hashem. So if I'm overwhelming you with mitzvahs, I have to tell you the most important principle. The Gemara says, if you grab a lot, you end up with nothing. If you grab a little, you end up with something. So have fun reading the book, which is full of stories of myself and other women, and then choose just 2 mitzvahs for which you'll say the Kavanah statement. It could be a mitzvah to guard your health before you eat a healthy meal or go to do exercise. It could be the mitzvah of Hesed before you take care of your child or you call a needy friend. Just 2 mitzvahs every day. That's what I'm recommending. And after a week or 2, add 2 more mitzvahs. And very slowly, very gradually, you'll be putting Hashem before you. It'll happen more and more. Eventually, after several months, there'll be a tipping point where you're conscious of Hashem throughout the day. Not every minute of the day, but Hashem will no longer be an occasional guest in your mind. You will have established a vibrant, loving relationship with God, which will be the most fulfilling relationship in your life. I'm going to make 2 suggestions to help this happen. 1, buy the book and keep it next to your bed and read a page or 2 every day. I have some cousins who live in Ramat Eshkol. One of them came to me for Shabbos, and I said, and I'm sending a book back for this one and this one. She said, oh no, we'll share it. No, do not share this book. You have to have it next to your bed so that even after you've read it, every day you can just pick it up and read 1 page, and that'll keep it in the forefront of your consciousness. According to the Musar method, this is my second suggestion. I was in a Musar Vad with Rav Leib Kelman for 16 years. Anybody here has been in a Musar Vad with Rav Kelman? Yes, okay. So you know that according to the Musar method of Rav Yisrael Salanter, you have to do 2 things. You have to chart and reward the body. And I'm not going to go into the whole philosophy of why that works, but in a Musar Vad, they give you exercises to do, and in order to really make it work in your life, you have to chart and you have to reward the body. The body, not the soul. You reward the body with what, ladies? Chocolate, ice cream, new earrings, new necklace, a reflexology treatment, a full body massage. That reward of the body, that gets your Yetzer Hara to cooperate on this spiritual program that you have embarked upon. So there's a website connected to this book. It's called 8secconnect.com. 8, figure 8, sec, S-E-C, connect.com. If you sign up there with your email, you'll get something from them. So it was created by a very smart young woman in England, and if you sign up, then every day for 2 weeks, you're going to receive a humorous clip that she made, a little animation of a mitzvah talking to you. There's a toothbrush talking to you. Of course, there's a chocolate bar talking to you. You'll get 1 a day for 2 weeks. And when you do that mitzvah and you say the formula, I'm doing this mitzvah, I'm watering these plants to fulfill the mitzvah of following in your ways, of emulating your ways, Hashem, in order to bond with you, then on this website, it's so cute, you give yourself a little virtual charm on your virtual charm bracelet. There's a charm of a watering can. Then there's a charm of a supermarket cart. There's a charm for not speaking Lashon Hara, not saying hard words. And there's a charm for, I think there's a charm for accepting tribulations with love. So check it out. It's fun and you'll like it. I did not come here tonight, ladies, to sell you a book. I came here to change your life. To show you an easy way to establish a deeper, more real, more loving relationship with your God. We all want that. We just don't have the time or the headspace to engage in a program that will make it happen. So that's why 8 seconds to connect with Hashem is a game changer. When I was in college, during the Vietnam War, yes, I'm dating myself, but I already told you how old I am, I wanted to change the world. Years later, I learned the statement of Rav Yisrael Salanter. It's sometimes attributed to other rabbis. I wanted to change the world. Then I realized I could only change my town. Then I realized I could only change my family. Then I realized I could only change myself. When I learned this, I embarked on a journey to change myself. I was in Rav Kellerman's Musar Vad for 16 years. I hosted Rebbetzin Heller's classes in my house weekly for 26 years. I've given a marriage webinar for women who want to work on themselves spiritually through their marriages for 11 years. And I always practice the tools I teach in my marriage webinar. But nothing ever worked to bring me near to fulfilling the Ramban's dictum that bonding with Hashem means that you should keep God and your love for Him in mind constantly. Now that I practice the method taught in this book, just 8-second spurts of mindfulness throughout the day while I'm doing what I was doing anyway, I feel like my life has turned from black and white into technicolor. And now I'm back to wanting to change the world. By writing this book to share with you the possibility of changing your life too.
So I'm so thankful for Sari Yocheved Rivgler for starting this initiative, because this is going to transform lives. It's so easy to get caught up in making Yom Tov and making Shabbos and all the things that we have to do, but you could be so busy that you let the moments go. And living with Kavanah is different. So thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk about this and really change lives and the lives of those around us. Thank you.
I'm really interested in how to bring concepts, big concepts, into practical, tangible messages, especially for kids. Because I find that as I'm trying to bring something down to the level of my kids so that they can understand it, what I'm really doing is I'm bringing it down to the level that I can understand it, because if I'm communicating it, then I've got to understand it in order to be able to boil it down. And one of the things that I found myself saying in the last few years to my kids is that when we're talking about doing mitzvahs, I will often tell them which mitzvah they're doing. And I'm not really sure where this idea started, but maybe it just occurred to me one day that this is the mitzvah of chesed. I tried to leave out the mitzvah of kibbud av va'em because that one sounds a bit self-serving, but I'll very often talk about the mitzvahs, and here's where I often get stuck. I can really think of scenarios where I've been sitting in the kitchen with my kids and we're talking about something, and the regular supper table quarrels break out about who's getting what first and who needs this and who needs that and who's going to get what for who. And what often happens is here and there I'll mention the mitzvahs, and especially with little kids, it's so easy to inspire them and inspire yourself at the same time. But very often I don't know what the actual mitzvahs are. You know, I know the basic ones. I know what's keeping Shabbos. I know what's doing chesed. I know, 2 or 3 more that would come easily to my lips. And then I go blank. And I've had this situation many times where I really feel like, I wish I knew what other mitzvahs we're doing here, because also part of the technique in motivating your kids is I want to actually tell them in a business style manner, like how many mitzvahs they're actually doing here. And then we get to times those by 1,000, then we get to times those by whatever, depending on if it's hard for them and depending on if they do it b'simcha. But I want to know my starting point. What is X? What is the mitzvah? And how many mitzvahs are we doing? So when I heard about the book that Sari Yocheved Rivgler is bringing out now, first thing that I really thought of is, wow, now I'm going to actually know what the mitzvah is, that I can actually motivate myself and my kids to see, you're not just doing this thing, you're doing this mitzvah and this mitzvah and this mitzvah. And it's really, really cool. I love to combine things. So my business head likes to know numbers. It likes to know specifics, and it likes to know what I'm tapping into. And I bring it into my parenting when I kind of rile them up with the sheer value of what they're doing by making it tangible, by bringing it down to something real, something that they can actually think, that's what it is. And it makes everything that they're learning in school so much more practical and so much more real, and not just some theoretical concept out there that maybe at some point they'll happen to chance on or happen to perform. So this is really exciting. I'm actually into chapter 3 right now, and I read this book. It's my Friday night book now. And every few minutes, I feel like I need to highlight this. Every few minutes, I read a gem and I'm like, okay, I have to get back to this on Motzei Shabbos with my highlighter and just pick out these absolute gems which really, really address the life of a woman, the life of a mother, and they speak straight to my heart. And I literally feel like it surrounds me with everything I need in order to go forward and do the things that we do and embrace the mitzvahs that come up in my day and be able to pass that on to the next generation. So I hope you take this opportunity to avail yourself of this absolutely amazing book. It's different to the other books that we have read from Sarah Chaved, but it's everything that we've read and enjoyed and more, because there's stories and interesting things and down to earth things, and it's everything we know and love and just more of it. Enjoy.
This beautiful project, which we have been gifted by Sarah Yocheved Riegler, who has used the ideas of the Kavanah Project, Rabbi Wakebright, and put this together in these incredible, easy to achieve and easy to attain project. It is amazing. Just 8 seconds. You can change absolutely everything and anything you do into something which is focused with mindfulness, and you change the way you think and you change the way you feel, and other people around you feel the same way.
I'd like to share with you why I am so thrilled about the release of 8 Seconds to Connect to Hashem, Mitzvah Mindfulness for Women. It has to do with this. When I was in yeshiva and I discovered about 10 years ago what a powerful effect having kavanah, being mindful when you do mitzvahs was, I was teaching it in Shirim, in the night Seder. We were having a great time. It was really clicking with people. But I realized, wait a minute, this is just almost instantly creating a great hizuk and a life path of spirituality for people. Maybe I need to move this beyond the yeshiva. And that's why I opened up the Kavanah L'Mitzvos Foundation, where we have been producing videos, graphic content, Kavanah tools, and doing many things. We're now, thank God, in our 6th year, beginning of our 6th year. However, that was well received, but I realized this is a diamond, and wouldn't it be great to share it with as much of Klal Yisrael as possible, especially women. It was clear to me that women just are so enlivened by it. And I prayed to Hashem, please let this go further. And boy, was my prayer answered. Rebbetzin Sarah Yocheved Riegler, who I'm sure many of you've read most of her books, Holy Women, etc. She's a writer for Aisha Torah's website. She writes for Ami. She's a fantastic writer, and she happens to be a neighbor where we used to live in the old city. When she shared, she says, this is life-changing. When I heard that from a woman who is so spiritually developed and such an important influencer of Klal Yisrael, was I thrilled. I realized, Hazdei Hashem, my prayer's been answered. Amazing. So what I want to now share with you is my next tefillah. So it's my prayer that we go from thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions more mitzvahs. And that can happen particularly through the Nashim Sidkanios, learning the Sefer, integrating the Sefer, sharing it with other people. Also, we direct people also in the Sefer to the efforts of Kavanah Mitzvahs Foundation, and together, the impact on Klal Yisrael in this time, can't we believe this could be the thing that closes out the Golas. So, I really encourage you, get the book, share the book, live the book. You'll thank me so much.